What on earth is this? What is it? Haven't I seen something like this on Baldur's Gate as well? No, maybe it wasn't Baldur's Gate, it was something else. Goodness gracious. They gave this guy a conical helmet, although it seems like it doesn't fit him well. But at least it doesn't go below the brow because it's supposed to. It's a bit too high though. That's a lot of space. Not to mention the nasal is not working properly. Whatever. But this, guys, what on earth is this? It's a monstrosity. It is. What's the point? If I try and stab this guy, even if these provided protection, by the very nature of the geometric shape, I'm going to be pedantic now. If I stab and the business end of my dagger hits here, it will be immediately redirected, just by nature of geometry, to the gaps. So it's like this armor, if anything, corrects your opponent's stabbing. So if you if to hit him, let's say this was D&D, and to hit him you need a 14, and then you do an 11, that's fine because you get +5, and so you got 16, and then boom, in the gap. And this is not armored, obviously, this is just probably thin leather. So even if the armoring was this, it's absolutely moronic.
Underwater until the last moment and can be pulled up to stop the ship at the appropriate moment. Now, even in Viking lands, these kinds of underwater obstacles were used, especially around trading towns, and try to minimize the possibility that raiders might attack the trading towns, because trading towns were very desirable targets for raiders. A lot of wealth. So chains, underwater obstacles such as posts and booms that were held below the water's surface, all of these were used. Their ships over the mountains and dropping them on the other side so they could sail to Paris. That's not a Viking approach at all. That's way off. They just sailed up the river. Viking ships were the technological marvel of their age that Vikings had and other European lands did not have. And one of the advantages of their ships is they were very shallow draft. They didn't need much water to float the ship. And so sailing up the river to Paris was no problem for them.
Gosh, what on earth is that? Sorry.
For them.
Look at this guy. Ooh, that's a black leather jerkin, if I've ever seen one. Guys, we're back to it. This is like old school Metatron complaining videos. I don't even know how I grew an audience in the first place. It's so obnoxious complaining about everything. Look at this though. How can I not complain about? Look at the stitches. These are stitches made by the Flintstones.
Especially in the river systems of Eastern Europe, when they sailed on trading voyages from the Baltic Sea down to the Black Sea. It seems likely that the way they would portage a ship over land is with wooden rollers. Just dragging it, probably mostly by human power, maybe with horses. I think I would rate this 4.
Ooh, I was wrong. Well, I would have rated it -3, so there is that. The gap is still significant. This is the face of a man who has seen a leather jerkin and did not comment because he's classy and I'm a monster. I'm a beast.
Vikings TV show uses historical people, names of people, historical places, but a lot of the details seem to transpire in this what-if fantasy world where people with Viking names have been dropped into something that's not very Viking.
Not very Viking of you.
If we believe the myths, that battle would be over in about a half second. Loki was scared to death of Thor because he knew Thor would pulverize him.
Yeah.
So in the instances where Thor issued a challenge, Loki quickly backed off.
For anyone, do remember, Thursday is the day of Thor. That's exactly where that comes from. Whereas Wednesdays is the day of Wedin, which is an older version of the name Woden, which is older, and then Odin. So Wednesday is the day of Odin, Thursday is the day of Thor.
Yeah, so the Warhammer would not have been a thing in the Viking Age, except, of course, for Thor's Mjolnir, his special hammer. Yeah. Numerous mentions of him smashing the skulls of his enemies with it.
Probably they can, because, of course, hammer is a smithing tool. So it probably made them think, like, imagine if you can smack someone with this hammer, and then that was connected to Thor. Of course, it doesn't mean that they did use Warhammers that looked like that. Of course not, but it's still interesting. Still interesting.
Numerous mentions of him throwing it. It had additional magical properties. It could bring the dead back to life. Now, in the world of humans, these kind of warhammers don't appear until
Yeah.
way after the end of the Viking Age, late medieval and Renaissance, in response to warriors starting to use plate armor
Yeah.
for their defense. So they
Yeah.
use these long warhammers to try to smash through the armor.
This guy's on point. Well, smash through the armor, still deliver some of the force, sure, depending. But yeah, no, this guy's good. This guy's good.
I'd give this a 3. The name is right, a few of the aspects are right, but most of it is kind of far off based on what we know of Thor, Loki.
Still, the guy's really nice because he just said, well, at least they got the name right. I mean, Thor.
The axe had a very specific purpose in battle. This is a replica.
Mm-hmm.
And what
Oh, yeah, that looks like a LARP axe. What's interesting about the axes, we'll listen to him first because we need to give respect to seniority. And then I'll tell you something, what I think about bearded axes.
it's intended to do is to split in two whatever it touches. What the sword has over the axe, the sword has maneuverability. You can change its trajectory as you're targeting. So if one target changes or becomes unavailable as the sword is in motion, you can retarget it and hit something else. With a two-handed axe, you can't do that. Once you set it in motion, it's going to hit. And the analogy we like to use...
I kind of disagree with him a little bit on that because I think the advantage that the sword has over the axe is the guard, first and foremost, because it's easier to parry with a sword than it is to parry with an axe. So a sword gives you a little more defense. And then, of course, the sword is you can slice with it. You can thrust with it. That's another advantage. You can't really thrust with an axe. But the redirecting, no, I think he's mistaken on this one.